So you're going to think it's a stretch why we're making this video with this title and this thumbnail, and why we have this posted onto the screen at the very beginning. I want to get into a narrative here, shall we? So, Smash Bros. 13 posted onto the R-Hockey subreddit earlier this week about the best and worst team of players versus the Calgary Flames. Presumably in the 2024-2025 season, these are the players that played the best versus Calgary, and these are the players that played the worst versus Calgary. Oddly enough, you've got Vancouver Canucks guys on both ends of the list. On the best team versus Calgary, JT Miller was one of the top forwards to play off against this team, as was Jake DeBrusk. You also had Elias Pettersson as one of the best defenders versus Calgary in the most recent season. Meanwhile, on the worst team versus Calgary, you have Artie Party Artur Shelovs as the very worst goaltender that the Calgary Flames played off against this season, and therefore the goaltender that Calgary had the most success against. The reason we're talking about Vancouver based off of this thread is because of one of the comments that I wanted to dive into and expand upon in this video. Scroll down over here and you'll see a comment by Carry On Replacement. He said this: "I'm still convinced that the Vancouver Canucks team never really recovered mentally after blowing the 3-goal lead on opening night against the Flames. Wouldn't be the first time opening night dictated the remainder of the season's play for the Vancouver Canucks." And this is a comment that I thought was so insightful and so true that I had no choice but to go out there and make a video commentary about it. If you don't know what Carry On Replacement is talking about, or if you just straight up decided to forget about what it was they're referring to, let's take our sights back over to October 9th, 2024. The very first game of the Vancouver Canucks season in 24-25, a game where the Calgary Flames won 6-5 in overtime. Now, we did make a video about this if you wanted to check it out. I remember I was in Vegas at the time with my folks. We were in the hotel room. Think about it like this. We're in Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada. The Strip is just a little bit away. We've got downtown Vegas and what in the world is it called? The really big thing in the sky with all the lights that goes overhead. We're in that part of Vegas. It's really nice. And instead of spending our time outside, we're in the gosh darn hotel room watching Vancouver and Calgary play a hockey game. It was game 1 of the regular season, and Vancouver ended up blowing the lead so badly, and this is the video that we made if you wanted to check out my unadulterated rage about what happened in that hockey game. But if you need the reminder, the Vancouver Canucks had themselves a 3-0 lead in the first period. Daniel Sprong scored the very first goal of the Vancouver Canucks season in 24-25. Brock Boeser then got himself another power play goal to get things up to 2-0. And then you had Connor Garland making it 3-0 all 12 minutes into the game. Heck, these 3 goals came within 3 minutes of each other. And then Anthony Mantha scored. He came in, got one by Artie Party Artur Shelovs, okay, 3-1. And then Brock Boeser made it 4-1. The Vancouver Canucks had a 4-1 lead in Game 1 of the first period of the very first game of the season. And then the Flames just came back on. Rasmus Andersson makes it 4-2. Martin Pospisil makes it 4-3. Mackenzie Weegar makes it 4-4. Jonathan Huberdeau then makes it 5-4 before JT Miller ends up coming down the wing, getting a pass from Quinn Hughes, and I believe Miller just walked right in and clap-bombed it from the face-off circle into the back of the goal. There you go, the spin, and then the pass all the way up. Miller walks in, shoots, and he scores. That is the play. That was a highlight reel play, off the bar and in, tie game, 5-5, and then Connor Zary wins in overtime. Here's the thing about this game for the Vancouver Canucks. It set the tone for the 2024-2025 Canucks. And this is what the comments are going out there and saying here. Vancouver Canucks seasons are completely based on Game 1. Blow the lead against the Oilers? Crappy season. Dominate the Oilers? Win the division. Blow the lead against the Flames? Another crappy season. By the way, the Vancouver Canucks, when they dominated the Edmonton Oilers, winning, I think it was like 8-1 or something, 8-2, in Game 1 of 2023-2024, that's when the Canucks had a really good year. They won the division, and the most defining part about that 23-24 Vancouver Canucks campaign was the fact that they never lost. Okay, they lost some games, but they barely lost, and they rarely lost when they had the lead after 2 periods. This is what Irfan Ghaffar tweeted out back on January 8th, 2024. The Canucks 23-0 when leading after 2 periods. They now have the most regulation wins than they had all of last year. Vancouver was a powerhouse at playing Rick Tocchet hockey, getting the lead early, having their top guys score points, and then just shutting things down, letting Carson Soucy and Myers and Zadorov and Ian Cole just totally clear the crease, dump and chase, make it so that the opposite teams had a really hard time clawing back. The Vancouver Canucks were gods amongst men when it came to closing games out in the third period when they had the lead. They did that like clockwork in 23-24. And what do they do in the first game of 24-25? They blow a 4-1 lead. Now, sure, they didn't have that big of a lead at the start of the third, but they still had a 4-2 lead. They did this. They lost one of these games in the first game of the year, where in the previous season they went 23-plus games straight, winning these games where they had the lead after 2. Vancouver totally shot themselves in the foot, mentally, goaltending-wise, superstar-wise. I mean, you take a look at it. Let's look at who scored for the Vancouver Canucks in this hockey game. Besser and Miller, okay, they had points. Amazing. Pettersson had an assist, which is fine. You want to see him get an assist. 23 minutes, 34 time on ice. He had the most time on ice for all forwards by far. He already had knee tendonitis at this stage. We started to see Pettersson's scoring drop off significantly from this point onwards, and then JT Miller would get into it with Petey, and then there was the thing about him calling him a baby, and that was all the drama that we saw from last year. But Vancouver just did not have themselves that good of a start. And especially when you think about the goals that Calgary ended up scoring, I mean, a lot of these were kind of weak. Artur Shilovs has a .769 save percentage in his first game. Shilovs, as we had said, was one of the worst goaltenders in the National Hockey League in 2024-2025. Like, literally, statistically speaking, he was up there. He had an .861 save percentage in 24-25 and a .365 goals against. He had 10 games played because they couldn't trust him. They couldn't play him any more games. Shilovs, best of luck in Pittsburgh, but man, oh man, did he not give the Canucks a chance to win in 24-25. He did really well in the playoffs, though, and that's why there's still reason to like this guy. And of course, we can acknowledge the Abby Canucks win, which definitely will go down as a great moment too. I mean, the team looked dominant early in that game. Never would have seen a collapse like that in 23-24. You must be right that it ruined the mentals of the team. If I recall correctly, things changed after Miller hit a guy, and Shilovs allowed some extremely weak goals. Maybe with Lankin in net, the collapse wouldn't have happened, but we know Tocchet doesn't like to pull the goalie. And yeah, that's true. JT Miller hit, I believe it was Kevin Rooney in the game, and that was a very big, controversial moment of the contest. It's kind of awoken the Calgary Flames. You can see that, yeah, Kevin Rooney, there you go, 1:03. The point is, the Vancouver Canucks totally shot themselves in the foot at the start of 24-25. And Game 1 of 25-26 might as well be the tone-setting game for the rest of the season, if you want to buy into that belief. With all that in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Vancouver Canucks and the way things began last season? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.